Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into an absolute revolution in the industrial sector. We're looking at the incredible transformation of chaotic, muddy construction waste into legally verified, highly monetizable carbon assets. And this isn't just a nice story about recycling, we're going deep into the 95-wood Digital Refinery. By operationalizing the latest edge AI hardware, specifically the brand new Google Pixel 10 Pro running Android 16, they've built what is essentially a sentient bridge. We're talking chaos in, verified purity out, generating audit-proof assets at every single step. It is absolutely fascinating, so let's get right into it. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the border waste crisis. Second, Ontario's strict regulatory squeeze. Third, the digital refinery solution. Fourth, edge AI and multimodality. And finally, turning waste into wealth. Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the border waste crisis. To really understand the urgency here, we have to start with the macro-level geopolitical mess brewing right now between the US and Canada. Just look at the sheer volume of Ontario's waste pouring into Michigan landfills over the last decade. Back in 2012, it was about 1.93 million tons. Fast forward to 2024, and that number surged to 3.44 million tons. Now, heading into 2026, the friction is red hot. We're looking at looming US tariffs, intense pushback, and local protests aiming to stop Michigan from being treated as a dumping ground. The cross-border waste trade is tightening dramatically, and the old business model of just shipping it south, it's dying. And it's hitting haulers right in the wallet. Michigan legislators are threatening to hike their landfill surcharge up to $5 a ton just to stem this tide. When you add that to potential tariffs, the supposedly cheap option of dumping waste is turning into a massive logistical and financial bottleneck. So this presents a really stark challenge for the industry. If you can't just dump the waste, you have to refine it. But how on earth do you bring order to the most chaotic analog data environment on the planet? I mean, a construction site isn't some neat, clean laboratory, right? It's muddy, it's unpredictable, and it's full of totally mixed debris. Which brings us to Section 2, Ontario's strict regulatory squeeze. That on-site chaos we just talked about is colliding head-on with severe domestic pressures. Enter Ontario Regulation 347, or OREG 347. This is the ultimate legal rulebook for waste management in the province. You see, in the eyes of the law, bad isn't a legal term, but hazardous absolutely is. This legislation strictly defines the chemical thresholds that make a piece of wood clean or hazardous, and you are strictly forbidden from mixing waste classes to dilute that contamination. You have to know exactly what you're hauling. And because this data is so heavily regulated, all of it must be processed locally, meaning within Canadian data centers like those up in Montreal, just to meet strict PIPEDA privacy standards. Now check out the financial penalty built into these regulations, the CICIL levy. If a contractor gets lazy and throws drywall, plastic, and treated wood into a mixed waste bin, they get hit with a massive $60 per ton levy. But if you isolate that clean wood, the rate drops to just $5 a ton. To put that into perspective, separating a single 144-yard mothership bin of clean wood avoids over $1,000 in taxes instantly. 905 Wood uses this brilliant concept called decoupled billing right on their intake dashboard to make these exact regulatory savings front and center for their clients. Let's move on to Section 3, the digital refinery solution. So how do you verify that kind of purity on a fast-paced, muddy job site? Well, the 95-wood digital refinery workflow acts as the sentient bridge out of this squeeze. Here's how it flows. First, an operator does a multimodal visual and audio scan of the wood load right from their device. Second, the AI classifies it instantly, clean versus treated. Third, it generates a legally compliant RPRA manifest. And finally, once it's verified, that pure wood goes to a high-temperature reactor for biochar pyrolysis, entirely bypassing the landfill. The era of the slow, monolithic AI model is totally over. To run an industrial-grade operation like this, you need a specialized multi-agent stack. 905 Wood uses Gemini 4.5 in the cloud as the eyes and ears, but for the edge brain running locally on the device, they leverage the Gemma 4 family, specifically the E2B and E4B models, running right on the Pixel 10 Pro's Tensor G5 chip. And for the legal mind, they use AlloyDB AI to hold the entirety of OREG 347 in active memory, cross-referencing every single load against the law. The real secret weapon here is multimodality. This is the ability to process video, audio, text, and images all at the exact same time. Older AI had to look at an image, awkwardly translate it into text, and then read that text. It was clunky.
Gemini 4.5 processes all these streams natively, so if a driver shouts demolition waste over the video feed, the system actually hears the audio context and fuses it with the visual data in real time. That's what allows this entire system to scale across a province-wide network without choking. Let's explore that deeper in Section 4, Edge AI and Multimodality. We are dealing with a fascinating paradox here. How do you bring supercomputer AI to a muddy scrapyard using just a smartphone? The answer is quantization. You can't rely on massive cloud models when you have spotty job site internet. It would drain the phone battery in minutes. So, through the LightArt AI stack, they actually compress the neural network's mathematical precision. They literally shrink the AI's 32-bit numbers down to 8-bit integers, allowing powerful models to run locally, right on the phone's hardware. And why go through all that trouble? Speed. The crucial point is what they call the sub-second rule. Through the Gemma 4 E2B model, the system classifies the wood with an end-to-end inference of less than 500 milliseconds. A provisional result pops up on screen in under 2 seconds. Because let's be real, site operators are impatient. If they have to sit there waiting for a spinning wheel, they simply won't use the app. This blistering speed is what makes the tech operationally viable.
But when the AI makes a decision, it isn't just a black box. This is what's known as explainable compliance. Using Vertex AI pipelines, every single decision creates an audit-proof lineage. If a load is rejected by a sensor, say it detects arsenic exceeding the 2.5 milligram limit, the AI generates a legally grounded citation, quoting the exact OREG 347 threshold, and they enforce a strict precautionary principle. If the Gemma model isn't completely sure, like if it sees weathered gray pine that might be hiding toxic treatment, a deep reject visual fallacy guard forces an escalation. It turns subjective visuals into bulletproof evidence. Which brings us to the final and most exciting part, Section 5, turning waste into wealth. Let's talk about the ultimate payoff. How does this rigorous on-device AI verification actually turn trash into highly lucrative digital assets? Enter Quarks, carbon dioxide removal certificates. When you take perfectly pure, clean wood, verified by the app, and bake it in a low-oxygen environment, you create biochar. You're essentially running the carbon cycle in reverse, pulling carbon out of the atmosphere and locking it into stable biocarbon for centuries. And that exact act of removal generates a highly tradable asset. Let's break down the math on this carbon dividend, because this fundamentally transforms a liability into a measurable asset. For every single ton of clean, dry wood inputted into the system, the output is approximately 0.75 tons of CO2 equivalent in carbon credits. So what is that actually worth? Right now, high-quality carbon credits can sell for around $350 a ton. If you do the math on a standard 10-ton dump truck, you're looking at a massive $3,500 ticket just for the carbon value. 95 Wood retains this carbon dividend while the client gets the upfront tax savings. It is a massive win-win. But here's the catch. Nobody is handing over that kind of cash without undeniable proof. You need an audit-proof chain of custody. The app leverages the Pixel 10 Pro's Titan M2 hardware root of trust to create a secure haptic seal. It locks in the exact GPS coordinates, the timestamp, and the AI model version. It proves exactly where the wood came from, what vehicle moved it, and guarantees zero double counting. It's an unbroken, legally defensible chain all the way to the generated PDF manifest. This completely flips the script for construction companies. To quote one of the system's designers, the lowest price is a myth once the CICIL levy hits. This is the Moneyball moment for waste. You can't just survive by hauling trash to a landfill anymore. By enforcing purity at the edge, you are literally manufacturing a high-value product for the global bioeconomy. So I want to leave you with this to think about. As border tariffs tighten against toxic imports, and as the global demand for carbon credits absolutely skyrockets, you have to look at your operations differently. Is the material sitting in your dumpsters right now a heavy financial liability? Or, when viewed through the lens of a digital refinery, is it your next major revenue stream? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating shift with me today.